In 2021, 4 years ago, I made a tweet, and the tweet referenced my women's only gym, the Girls Spot, and being trans inclusive. Now, when I made that tweet in 2021, I had just announced my plans to open a women's only gym.
This woman is receiving a lot of backlash right now because at first her gym was going to be welcoming of trans people and now it's not. And what really bothers me about this situation is not the whole trans versus biological woman thing. It really is the fact that most of the people complaining about this are either in the United States.
Because you're in the UK, I'm in the States, and I can see you.
So not gonna go to her gym in London, or they're people that look like they've never been in a gym in their life.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm a trans woman who is currently socially transitioning.
No trans girls. No cis girls only. Show me your birth certificate.
What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, so this is an influencer by the name of Natalee B. And like I said, Natalee B had 4 years ago originally mentioned that she was going to start a gym, a trans-inclusive gym. And when she said that, she put out a tweet that said, "Respectfully, if you have a problem with trans women attending my gym, then you can find another gym to train at. I have discussed this several times before. Trans women are women and also a minority that need to be protected. Please keep your transphobia away." Skip ahead 4 years. She now wants it to be only for biological women, a single sex space. And of course, the trans community was completely supportive and basically cheered her on for making this decision. Just kidding. We all know the trans community got heated, but I can't really blame her for making the decision that she made because in the last 4 years, what it means to be trans has definitely changed. And there has been a little bit of aggression, let's be honest, more than a little bit of aggression when it comes to the trans community and the way that they've dealt with women, particularly in the UK. So I can understand her on that level. And also, if it's her gym and her money, then she can say who can and can't come in. As long as she is going by the law, which we will find out as we go through this story, that she is within her rights when it comes to that. Also, we will find out why we're very blessed to live in the United States, and we should all be thankful for some of the guardrails that the Trump administration has put in regarding gender. And then there will be one part that I don't agree with. And before anybody gets mad at me, understand that I will explain, and it's not anything to do with what you think it's to do with. And I think a lot of you will at the very least agree with what I'm saying on it. So before you jump down my throat, understand that it's a very logical complaint that I have. Not even necessarily a complaint, just the way I would handle things just a little bit differently if I were her and I wanted to move forward in good faith. But we'll go ahead and let her tell her story uninterrupted. It's a short video, so don't worry. I'll be right here watching along with you, but it is a short video and I feel like she can explain it better than I can, and we'll go from there.
In 2021, 4 years ago, I made a tweet, and the tweet referenced my women's only gym, the Girls Spot, and being trans inclusive. Now, when I made that tweet in 2021, I had just announced my plans to open a women's only gym. I hadn't thought out the vision or the mission or what it would entail, but all I knew is that I wanted to open a gym. We are now 4 years later, and I have had a great deal of time to figure that out. The Girls Spot Gym exists as a safe space for women because women are facing gym harassment, sexual assault, and sexual violence inside of gyms. And I know that because I'm a victim of it. So the meaning of the Girls Spot Gym is now entirely different. And I say this to say that whilst we are a gym, inside we are focusing on self-defense classes, Muay Thai, boxing classes, as well as workshops and activations around PCOS and training on your menstrual cycle, all of which occur to biological women. Majority of the women who are seeking my women's only gym, the Girls Spot, are coming here because they have faced some level of gym intimidation or sexual violence and assault that has been perpetrated by men. So as the owner of the gym, it is very important to make it clear how my women's only gym will be operating, and it will be operating as a single sex space for biological women. Now, we do believe that everybody deserves a safe space, And there are many gyms that are starting to have mixed cubicles and changing rooms so that individuals can feel safer and more included in these environments. But the Girls Spot Gym as a standalone is a female-only gym because it is imperative that I stick to the vision and the mission and ensure that these women feel safe.
And that's a letter from the boss. And call me crazy, but I think that she was perfectly reasonable and respectful in that particular statement. But of course, that wasn't good enough for people. So people started harassing her to a point where she actually took that video down, and then she put out an apology video. But at the same time, she stood on her decision to keep it a biological female single gym. And while some people may not like that, she was within her rights to do so, because apparently there are certain exceptions to the law as far as allowing people that are trans and even have had their documentation changed to be excluded from certain spaces, and the gym, because of the specifications, actually does fit that. Like, I'll read this to you really quick. The Equality Act does allow for single spaces that specifically block out trans-identified males, even if they have legally changed their sex on documents. Guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission was updated on the issue in 2022, which says that trans-identified men may be excluded if the reasons are justifiable and proportionate. The guidance also specifically mentions two of the points that Barnett discussed in her video and further statement. One example given by the EHRC in 2022 was where a leisure center introduces some female-only fitness classes. It decides to exclude trans women because of the degree of physical contact involved in such classes. The Muay Thai classes Barnett suggested the gym would end up focusing on would be one of these. Which makes sense, because if you're going to be doing any kind of contact sport, having a female against a genetic male is probably not going to be a safe idea. And that's where you start to run into problems, because then what are you going to do? Make it so this person's membership doesn't cover them going to the Muay Thai class? I'm sure the trans community and the activists especially aren't going to take that well. Furthermore, the EHRC said it would also most likely to be proportionate to exclude, modify, or limit trans people's access where a service provider has limited resources and physical space to alter the way the service is provided, or if they are dealing with groups with particular needs. For example, female victims of male assault who may feel unable to participate in the presence of someone they perceive as male. Given the specifics of the Girl Spot creating a safe space for women who had been sexually assaulted in a gym before, this would also likely fall within the scope of the protections of the act. See, and that makes perfect sense right there too, especially being that the gym owner herself has been a victim of SA before. So with that being the case, she herself qualifies for that particular one, and just being like, yeah. And she did talk about what happened to her. I know it's nobody's business, but she did talk about it in a particular interview. And what happened was she was chatting with a guy that she had chatted with, not chatting like that, just chatting like you chat with somebody at the gym every once in a while. And she was laying on a bench and they were talking. And then she said out of nowhere, when she obviously wasn't paying attention, he decided to touch her. And she said she wasn't comfortable talking about where he had touched her exactly, which I get that. That can be kind of embarrassing to have to go into those kind of details, but we can all imagine. But he touched her, and she said that it happened so fast, and she couldn't even believe that that happened in public, that it really caught her off guard, and it gave her like that moment where she was like, did that just happen? And really couldn't believe it happened. And then she was so stunned, she ended up staggering away, which I've had gay men do things like that with me. Now, I'm an older woman, so people know not to pull that kind of stuff with me unless we're in a bar. I've had some stuff pulled in bars too, but I've had stuff like that where one time I was talking to a guy in a bookstore, not an adult bookstore, a regular bookstore, and we were chatting and I had met him at a club, but we didn't plan on meeting in that bookstore. It was just like a happenstance type thing. I was there and then I ended up seeing him and he came over to talk to me. And this was when I was much younger. I knew that he was interested in me. He had been like flirty with me at the club or whatever. And then just out of nowhere, he just grabbed me while we're in this public place. And I was quite modest at the time, I would have to say. So I really was like thrown off by that. It was one of those things where it was like, what did you just do? And I got like angry with him. And he was like acted like I was out of line after that. Like every time he apologized in the moment and stuff like that. But then later on, he acted like I was weird for having that reaction with him. And I didn't care either way because I never wanted to see him again. But again, there is something different even in situations like that, even though I think that you should still be able to call it out. And I think people should still treat it with a degree of seriousness. But there is a difference between male and male-female because of the strength maybe, or because there is a different threat maybe. And let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And while I do agree that it should be taken seriously, at the same time, I do appreciate that there is a difference between, like I said, male and male-female. And when people had suggested that possibly she could have certain hours where trans people were allowed there and stuff like that, she was like, it's a small space. It's only me doing this. I don't have the money to do those kinds of things. Everything she said was very reasonable, if you ask me, but that's never going to be good enough for some people. And that's why I think that she should not have apologized. That's the only mistake I think she made in this part of the process. Like I said, when we get into this video from one of her detractors or somebody that doesn't agree with her, I'm going to explain where I think that she went kind of wrong in a way, but anything that she's saying so far, I'm completely on board with, and I think it's okay. The only thing is, I don't think she should have apologized. I think she should have had that same energy when she was defending trans people, and she said, if you have a problem with trans people, you can find another gym to train at. I think she should have had that same energy now with the people that are mad at her because she wants a female-only single-sex space. To me, I think that's the way she should have gone at it. Because if you concede to these people at all, they will eat you up. They will see that as a sign of weakness and they will continue to go after you. So, like I said, let's get into this video from one of her detractors and we'll take this one point by point.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm a trans woman who is currently socially transitioning.
Hi, Amelia. Good to meet you. And I'm not trying to be like that, but let's be honest. You ain't never been in no gym. I'ma let you finish, but this is not your fight, boo-boo.
I have not medically transitioned as of yet.
Okay, so I don't want to interrupt too soon, but that means that you are still intact. And the fact that you are still intact does actually matter. Let me set up a scenario for you. Let's say you're one of those people that doesn't mind being nudie to the booty in front of strangers. And let's also say that maybe a woman or women in a women's only gym don't want to see peen under any circumstances. And being that this is a women's only gym, they don't have another space for you to change other than the women's locker room. Now, do you see the way that that already presents a problem? Because what are they supposed to do? Give you or other trans people a limited membership where you aren't allowed in certain areas or aren't allowed to use the locker room? That's not going to work. The trans community isn't going to be happy with that. So instead, they just make it a blanket, biological, females only gym, and then they don't have to deal with that problem.
The only thing that I take issue when it comes to your video is, and this is something that I deal with quite a lot, is this idea that trans women are automatically seen as a danger.
Now, she did not at all say that, but I do think it's very important for trans people to understand that in certain situations, certain women will only want to be around other women. And I know some people get real loosey-goosey with the term women, so let me be as clear as she is. Biological females only. And there is nothing wrong with that. Just like if men want to have a men's only space, or if trans people want to have a trans people only space. And I think as long as nobody's being truly discriminatory, I don't think that that should be a problem for anybody. But I will tell you what really doesn't make sense to me in all of this. I've noticed that all of the trans people that are talking about this right now have no problem with men that identify as men being excluded from this gym. But as soon as trans people get told that they're being excluded, suddenly it becomes a problem. And to me, that makes no sense at all. Because if you had a problem with absolutely anybody being excluded and just thought it should be a gym for everybody, that at least I could understand. I'm not saying I think that it would be right, but at least then it would be consistent and it would make sense to me, because then you're against discrimination altogether. And nobody get mad at me in the comments right now. By the way, like, comment, and subscribe. Do that. Do. I'm a child. But do like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you click the bell to select all notifications so you know every time I upload. But what I was getting at is, I'm not saying that I think it's right, so don't get mad at me in the comments just yet. I'm not saying it would be justified, but I am saying at least the thinking would be consistent if it was like, I think everybody should be allowed in this gym.
I don't understand this rhetoric that trans women are just men in wigs trying to gain a system in order to cause harm.
Well, that's really for you to take up with the trans community, because this particular woman, Natalee B, has received threats and nasty comments from trans people since making this announcement, which supports the argument that women have a right to feel at least somewhat threatened.
Which to me is further from the truth. I think it's really harmful to dorm this stereotype, because trans women are not men. Trans women are not just men doing this to gain a system to harm people.
Again, she did not say that, but you do have to accept that some females do not want males in their spaces, especially at a place like the gym. Because even under the best circumstances, a lot of times a co-ed gym will turn into a meat market. Some people like that about the gym. Some people don't. I know a lot of women really don't want to be messed with at the gym. I personally just like to go to the gym and completely tune out, even though I know I should be cruising the other guys or checking people out or whatever it is that's supposed to go on there, because some people do cruise the gym. I'm not one of those people. I go to the gym looking as unattractive as possible, because I usually just rolled out of bed and I want to get my workout out of the way. I'm not worried about being cute, and I don't want to talk to anybody, and I don't want to meet anybody. So I can relate to the people that would want that factor completely taken out. And women have it even worse, because some men think it's okay to approach women under any circumstance. And I'm not saying that trans women are men, but trans women are still males, and sometimes women just don't want to be around males. And another thing some people brought up was that there are some Muslim women that may want to be able to expose their hair or wear something that's more form-fitting because they're away from the male gaze. And even though you may see trans women as women, maybe certain cultures don't feel that way. And some people could say, well, we shouldn't necessarily cater to these cultures. But again, it's at the gym owner's discretion. So if she's willing to cater to that particular audience, then just like when she said that she was willing to cater to trans people and everybody was okay with that, everybody should be okay with her deciding that, hey, Muslim women are more important than trans women in her book.
And it's really frustrating, because I don't understand how you would police this whole situation. How are you going to determine who is biologically female and not?
That is a good question, because in the UK, you can change your documents, including your birth certificate, as long as it was issued in the UK. So that does put us in a bit of a pickle. And this is what I was talking about when I told you guys that I would mention why we were lucky to be in the United States and why what Donald Trump did with making it so that you can't change your sex on your birth certificate, or making it so your ID and your passport have to go by what your birth sex was, is because I don't really know how they would enforce this in the UK. Like I said, this is in London specifically, and if you can change your documents, and you would assume that that would be the most reliable way of finding out, then it would seem like it would be kind of hard. And there are sometimes women that look very manly. Like, I've known at least 2 women like that in my life that really, really looked manly. And me and my family, because we're all silly, would joke about it every once in a while when they weren't around, because they were my sister's friends. And we would occasionally make jokes or whatever, but at different points, they had each gotten pregnant. And it wasn't like they were Beyonce pregnant, if you know what I'm getting at. Allegedly Beyonce pregnant. So they wouldn't have been able to like pretend that they were actually pregnant when they weren't. They were both really pregnant. And I'll tell you, there is nobody more proud to be pregnant than a woman that looks like a man, because she finally gets to say fuck you to everybody, and now you all know that I'm actually a woman. So you can't necessarily just go by the way that somebody looks. And then the other thing that I saw on X, and what originally alerted me to this, was it was actually a trans man that said something like, I can't wait to work out in your safe space, diva. And then there were people trying to argue in the comments that this mutilated woman shouldn't be allowed to go to that gym. And it's like, rules are rules. That is a biological female, even if it looks like a male. Because that's one thing people are going to have to understand about these situations, is you can have what you would want. But if we're going by legally and what is born, whatever it's born, then you can't say that trans women aren't women, but trans men are men. It has to be consistent across the board, or else then you do open yourself up to people being able to say it's discrimination. So even though you may not like that a trans man or a person that presents as male is in a female space, it's something you're going to have to deal with if they were born female. But to get back to the point, I'm not really sure how it would work out with you being able to change your documentation.
When they enter your gym, like, I don't understand, and this is encroaching on not only trans women's personal spaces, but by trying to segregate, you're causing harm to biological women as well, by being intrusive, by questioning their own identity.
I don't really think that would be a problem, because I think that any woman that wanted to go to that gym, knowing that it's supposed to be a female-only gym, would be fine with providing documentation that they are a female, because that's the whole reason they're going. And I think if this person, Natalee B, is smart in the way she does it, what she'll do is you just have to submit your birth certificate ahead of time online before you even set foot in the gym. That way it's not at all influenced by the way a person looks. As long as a person is born female and it shows that on their birth certificate, or whichever way that they can best verify that a person is actually female in London, would be the way that they would handle that. It's like, we don't care what you look like. We just need to see the actual proof that you are a female. And like I said, I think most women would be happy to go along with that, because they understand that it's nothing personal and it's not at all based on your looks. It's just across the board, one size fits all verification for everybody. But one thing I would like for people to comment is, I know some people from the UK and London specifically do watch my channel occasionally. So if you could comment what would be the way of people being able to verify your birth, since you guys can change your birth certificates over there, that would be greatly appreciated and helpful to all of us, I think.
To me, it just feels like you've fallen to the pressures of people who don't like trans people existing.
I'm sure there are plenty of other gyms in London where everybody is welcome. This is one small gym with one location. Just like here in the United States, we had the Planet Fitness controversy, which was just the opposite of this. Women were saying that they didn't want trans women in the locker rooms at Planet Fitness, and Planet Fitness was like, we allow people to go to whichever locker room that they most identify with. And people boycotted, and some people canceled their memberships, and Planet Fitness weathered the storm and said, our policy is our policy. And now it just is what it is, and people know going in that Planet Fitness is a gym chain that respects the way people identify, no matter how the other members feel about it. So they were able to weather the storm, and if there's a market for what she's doing, she'll be able to weather the storm too. And let's stop acting like the only way a person can exist, be they trans or biological, is to belong to a gym. Because if that was the only way for people to exist, there would be a lot of people in this world that don't exist.
Of course, trans women are not going to want to book into classes to talk about PCOS or to talk about anything to do with a biological woman's health, because we're trans. That has got nothing to do with us.
You would think that, but I have personally witnessed certain trans people really get in arguments with biological women and debate them about things that really didn't concern them physically or shouldn't have been real issues for them. Like, there was one situation in particular that a lot of us LA comedians at the time had to deal with, where we had this particular trans comedian that for some reason just really wanted to argue with women about tampons. And I don't even remember the specifics of that particular argument or what her thing was, but everybody was just like, why is this person that has no logical use for tampons arguing with women right now about tampons? This is definitely an argument that you can sit out. And the women just had to deal with it because they were one of those people that would get really aggressive and hostile if they were at all pushed or told that they weren't welcomed in certain conversations pertaining to women, because in their mind, or the way that they would try to put it out there, was that they were the same as a woman, so they should have a say in anything that women would usually have a say in. So in a perfect world, you're right. Trans women would be like, okay, this is of no concern to me, and they would sit it out. But that's not always the way it's going to play out. And again, we go back to what I said with the locker room. How are you going to tell a person that they have only a limited membership? Are you going to be able to tell them that they can't be in the particular seminars, classes, however you want to put it, where they're talking about things that are very biological, female specific? And that's again where you run into discrimination. So you just make it a hard and fast rule that only biological females are allowed in this gym, and then you don't have those problems.
But I don't understand what danger having trans women in a female space is going to do to anyone.
You've already said that 3 different ways now, and I don't know how to tell you. It doesn't have to be a danger. I mean, women should just be able to say, we want this space to be for us. And the fact that you and others really can't get that and think that you're owed an explanation kind of explains why women might not be the most comfortable with trans women invading their spaces.
And I guess what I'm trying to say is it's just disappointing. It's disappointing to see that you used a community to fundraise for you to be able to open.
And this is the part I was telling you guys about, where I think that she is in the wrong for that. Because she did start a GoFundMe to raise money for her gym. And I think that if trans people donated money, or trans allies donated money thinking that they would be able to work out with their trans friends at this particular gym, I think those people should be entitled to get their money back. I think she should make that easy for them. I think she should allow them to get their money back with no problem.
And you know what? It's okay, because you've told them that they're not welcome and now they won't come. So now they have to find safe spaces of their own. But run them back their money.
But I don't think that now she has an obligation or should be legally bound to allow them to be in her gym or to change what her vision of her gym is at this point. But I definitely do think that they gave the money under false pretenses if she changed the plan, which clearly she did, because she's been talking about this for a couple of years now, and then she just made this announcement, and that's what made all the problems, was she just recently made this announcement a couple of days ago. So that part I do agree with people on, because several people have said that online, that she really should give people's money back. Some people have referred to it as a rug pull. I don't know if I'd go that far, but kinda.
What should have been an inclusive space, and instead you've taken people's donations, you've spun around on your stance, and now you're discriminating against people.
Well, it's a woman's prerogative to change her mind. So I don't know what you want from me. Like I said, I do think that people should be able to get their money back, but I don't think that anybody should be trying to hold her to the fact that this gym has to be trans inclusive now. I think that if she's willing to return everybody's money, then nobody should be complaining. And if that's not happening the way that you feel that it should, I think you should either contact GoFundMe or you should look into small claims. That's the way I feel about it. But then also, I have donated to people's GoFundMes before, and usually it's just because I want to see their dream happen. I usually don't have any investment in what they're doing. So I probably personally would just write it off and be like, I don't really care about that, because that's what I've done any other time I've done a GoFundMe. I've never donated to I've never run a GoFundMe myself, but I've never donated to a GoFundMe and then later on felt like I wanted my money back. Coincidentally, one of the GoFundMes that I donated to was this particular trans woman that was in London specifically. And she had said that she was trying to save up her money for her facial feminization. And I think her breast, it was more than one surgery that she was trying to get the money for. And she was really pretty. And I was like, this person could use a little bit of help. Why not? Who doesn't like to help beautiful people out? What do I care how they identify? She's being honest. She's using it for plastic surgery. Send this girl some money. I didn't send a lot of money. I sent her $75. But then I followed her online for a while. I didn't keep up with her for that long. And then at a point, she decided to detransition. She went back to being a beautiful man, neither here nor there, but just making the point that even when she detransitioned, I didn't feel like I should be able to get my money back now, or I'm going to harass this person to try to get money back from her because I gave her money to have a transition and instead she detransitioned. It is what it is with these GoFundMes. If you donate money, and then you just let it go. That's the way I see it. And maybe I'm just old school like that, but I don't really believe in having an expectation for people once you donate money to them. You donated it. You gave it away. But if it's a problem for you or anybody else that donated, I would definitely look into it and see if you can make a claim in small claims court or whatever your guys' equivalent is in London. I'm sure you guys have some sort of small claims court you could take it to.
And I just don't understand.
And that's the way she ended this particular video. And I think it's the perfect way for her to end this video, because that's what you and the rest of the trans community are going to have to learn to understand, is that you don't always have to understand. Sometimes the answer is no to you being included in certain things, and that's just what it is. And that's what it is for all of us. There are some spaces that are only for men that women aren't included in. There are some spaces that are only for gay men that we don't really want straight men or women or trans people in. There are certain spaces that are for lesbians and the only people that really don't seem to understand this, and I'm not trying to come off any particular way, I'm just trying to be honest, and hopefully some trans people stumble onto this and understand that it's like this for all of us. And the only people that really do seem to have a problem with that right now are trans activists. And people like this, like they said that they're new in their transition. that's a lot of times who feels the most slighted and everything. People that have been themselves for a while, and I'm not saying anything derogatory when I say themselves, but I am saying people that are comfortable in their skin and have settled into who they are don't usually have these things where they feel slighted by things that don't really matter. Like me being a gay man is a good example. I have straight friends that will have bachelor parties and I won't be invited to the bachelor party. And that's because in a lot of cases with bachelor parties, they are going to have exotic dancers. And I don't know what happens at bachelor parties, but I know straight men do straight men things at bachelor parties. I have an idea of some of the things that happens. Every once in a while I'll hear a story of things that happen. But my point is, when I don't get invited to a straight man's bachelor party, I don't feel at all slighted and I don't feel at all like they're discriminating against me. I feel like that is just a straight man thing. My female friends, in a lot of cases, no matter how close I am with them and I love them and they love me, I don't get invited to certain things like a baby shower. And that's because in some cases, that is very much considered a female thing. When I don't get invited to a baby shower, I don't feel like my female friends, no matter how close we are, I do not feel like they're being discriminatory towards me. I do not feel jilted in any way. I don't feel excluded in any way. I just feel like that's one of those things that's for the women. And so I'm not going to make a thing of that. There are places that I go that I'm not ever going to take one of my straight friends to, be they male or female. There are certain places that I won't even invite my other gay friends because I don't want anybody to know I'm there. And not to get angry. But what I'm trying to get at is, trans people are going to have to learn, just like everybody else, that there are certain situations that you're not going to be invited to. And nobody needs your blessing, your approval, your permission, or to give you an explanation in order to do these things. It's just not the way that it works for any of us. And when it comes to gyms, I don't know when this became such a problem, and I don't know when this even became a thing, because here in the United States, we used to have a gym that was called Curves. It was a chain of gyms, and it was specifically for women. And at that time, men just understood that they weren't welcome there. Trans wasn't where it is as far as acceptance, so trans people knew that they weren't going to be welcome there either unless they were the most passable, which most trans people didn't want to put themselves under that kind of microscope, so they just stayed out of there anyway. And it really wasn't a thing. And eventually, I don't know what happened specifically with Curves or what their eventual downfall was, but I know that that chain closed down, and that's where you really know what's going to work and what's not, is once the market speaks. So if people don't actually support this woman, Natalee B's idea of a female-only gym or a single sex space as far as a gym goes, then it won't continue to be a thing. But if people do like the idea and people do support it, then you might start seeing more of it. Or maybe hers will just be the one that really flourishes, and people will know that if they're looking for a biological female single sex gym in London, then that's the one to go to. And that, again, is just something that the trans community is going to have to deal with. Sometimes the market speaks, and when the market speaks, we have to listen. Anyway, that's where I'm at on it. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you want to see a video of me talking about why Latinos are boycotting Coca-Cola, click the video on your screen. Other than that, as always, thank you for watching. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
They bought into his bullshit.